going to go right to Asia. Has any of you been to any Asian countries? Have any of you gone there? Okay. Asian countries. So, what do you think, if you just to guess, might be an important thing in Asia?
Family.
Huh?
Family.
Family? What do most of Asians say about business people that go there to do business with Asia? What's mostly that they don't quite understand about Americans go there? Is the manners, their manners. And why is there somebody else in the next time? Why isn't the same person coming back and forth? If we don't see the same person and they left the company, you know, how maybe there's something is wrong. How do you expect us to do business with you? So manners, personal connection. The personal connection is going to take a long time. You know, it could take 1 year. This was very similar to where I came from. It's also, there is this, you must earn your relationship, you must earn it. You just don't hand it over. And of course, trust. And this idea of being transferred to another person, this is a problem like in hospitals these days, when people are brought in because there is nurses working, part-time nurses working 2 days a week, there's full-time nurses, there's a whole change of staff, there's like very different. And what happens sometimes is the family comes in and say, where is nurse so-and-so? You know, and she's not working today, or she, when should she be back? Next week. Well, how come? Like, my father really liked that nurse, but now it's a different one. Then they come, oh, where is the nurse from yesterday? Oh, we have somebody else today. Some people get used to it because they find out economically how this has changed, you know, in that way. So this is something that's, if you want to do business in Asia, this is very important. For example, when Ford Motors first came to Ireland to do business, to build a factory, you know, they built a very nice factory and says, oh, we have jobs, please come to work. People went to work and they go have a lunch and they don't come back after lunch because they say, oh, I made enough in 4 hours. Like, that's enough, I don't need any more money. And they wouldn't go back, you know, and that. And also the managers would get promoted up to another side, and this manager then wouldn't have anything more to do with this person, and there was like a new manager, and they thought this is very strange, you know. Now when Apple Computer and HP came, they looked at the culture of Ireland, thinking it was like more like America, and it's very different, and looked at these kinds of things and started to look at what it is. Like, one thing, for example, if you're in a meeting in America, in business, and you don't like something, and if you don't speak up about it, it means you agree. You know, in Asia, and where I come from, it means nothing. It's sort of like neutral. There's no, you know. So do you see kind of like how this settled? You think you that way, and this happened to me at Stanford. We had the staff meeting, and you know, I think I worked there 2 years before I said anything, and my boss says, "Oh, well, Sean agreed to it." And I says, "Well, I agreed to it because I didn't say anything the opposite." You see, this kind of way. How just very quickly you're in trouble. Okay. So a little bit more. There's this. Any of you ever gone practice any kind of silence? What happens when you are silent for, let's say, about 4 hours? What happens to you? when you're silent for one whole day and one whole night? How about 2 days? How about 3 days? Silence is very much in the Asian culture. There is a break in the conversation. So you say something, then you say something, but there's like silence in between. You say, well, I think research says we could do it this way. Stop. There's like a few seconds. Then you might say, you know, I think the same. And you say, yeah, that sounds like the same for me too. But there is this sort of settled moment. And it's very small, and it can be very large. Why do I have Rorschach on there? You know, our test, anybody want to know? What does that have to do with death and culture? So, Rorschach, if we say twice the word death in Rorschach, it's put down as being morbid. We have a morbid sort of attitude. When we psychologists, I don't know, social workers, do you give Rorschachs too, if you had no? Anyway, so when I was at school and I heard that, I said, wow, because if you talk to somebody like from Mexico, or Ireland, or other countries, they will use that word quite often. You know, fear of death, concerned, I'm praying for somebody that has died, I visit him in the grave, that you know, that kind of way. And so this word, I don't know if this has changed or not culturally, but it surprised me. Birthdays is this other part. Is this other part where birthdays is not so important in Asia. What's important is when we die, the day we die. The anniversary of the death is more on the day we die. You know, it doesn't matter where we die. But let's say you are in Europe, you're from China, and you die in Europe. But your anniversary is the day that it would be in China, let's say. So it's mirrors. Mirrors are covered usually in most Asian countries when somebody dies. Mirrors in the house, mirrors in the cars. People avoid driving as much as possible because they have to see through the mirror, but they turn the mirror down or they'll cover it. The mirror is covered in the house because the belief is that when we die, before the spirit travel out, it comes to a place of work, it comes to the place of where we live, or we have lived, and that nature. So sometimes there's an opening in the door, sometimes there's two openings, or there's a window open, the top and the bottom, so they can come in and go out. The idea is that the spirit, you know, by not covering the mirror, the spirit will get confused. It can't go out, it can't move. And when it's supposedly, when it comes to the mirror, it sees its own reflection and it gets confused. So to cover the mirror helps the spirit to leave the house, to leave the body, to find its way out. You know.
In Orthodox Judaism, that's also a custom.
Is that right?
That all mirrors are covered.
Yeah, they do it in Russia too.
Russia?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And we have the same in Ireland. Other thing that's usually done, so let's say this is my house, somebody dies here, this house, and the village is over here where the body is going to be taken. All of these houses in this road, they will also cover the windows, either inside or outside. when the body is being moved, let's say to a church or to cremation, they will cover outside either outside or they will close it up, they'll turn off the lights, and it will be dark, and they may have just a candle which is away from the window. The door is closed. If you are walking on the road, and behind you or in front of you comes this procession, you turn around, and there's this thing about, do you know about the 7 stars of the sky? Mix up the plow, finding the North Star. You know, there is this 7 stars, that is used, and at the end of the plow, where the horse pulls it, they will help you to locate the North Star. We call it the plow. It's called something else in what's it called when you study the stars? What? Astronomy, I guess so. Yeah. You take about 7 steps. That way you have participated. You have participated in the service of the dead. That means this person has died, and maybe now they will help you when you go look for a job or you take an exam.
So the idea of covering the windows again is to help the spirit find its direction and find its place.
Yeah. Almost anything that's glass is covered.
Interesting.
Yes, like pictures are also covered. But they carry the picture of the dead person in front of the body. And most of the time it doesn't have glass over it, It's just a picture open to, Sometimes it does have glass and they try to cover parts of it. There is. So most of glass is removed, like glasses, like wine glasses. All of these people kind of go a little bit overboard. They try to make it look like no glass. They just bring wood. So it's this.
And this is not only customary in Ireland, but in Asian countries
It's
as well?
very strong in Japan, in Korea. It's I hear about it in Russia. Hear about it for people in the Jewish religion. I hear about it in the customs. For example, if you might have watched when Lady Diana's procession was going down, that the bagpipes that are played are Scottish people. They're Scottish. So this is a part of the Scottish bagpipes are mostly played from the old custom is that the only time you can play in England is when somebody dies. That was like that you could play. You couldn't play. To take the body to the cremation or take the body for burial. So many times the houses that you could see, they were covered. And sometimes Scotch people have a mirror. It's supposed to be sort of for good luck, would be covered. And so if you watch closely, the Scottish bagpipes. So the soles of the feet is the other part. It's about good manners, for example, in Asia. You never put your feet up like this, the soles of your feet. This is sort of the good manner where, but when you die, you show the soles of your feet. You show where you have traveled. In that, when you go to, if it's like Catholic service or even before the body is cremated, you're greeted with the soles of the feet. Bagpipes, we think, started in India, traveled all the way up through China, the Middle East, into Africa, and came into Ireland and from Ireland to Scotland. There's about 200 different kinds of bagpipes. There's particular music that's played in that. You go to India, they play different bagpipes there. And of course, I heard now they're playing bagpipes in Asia. It's practicing because I like the sound. It was used a lot, bagpipes, for around the body when it's taken for burial to make sure they're dead. And there would be a drum in front, the largest drum is in the back to bang I think every time the right foot's hit the ground or something. So the bagpipes are usually not played inside the house, and bagpipes are not played alone. They're usually with another instrument in a backup, flute or something like that. Okay, why do I have white up here? Why not the word black?
White is the color of death.
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
Sorry?
It's the color of death, white.
White?
It's not black.
Uh-huh. Why do people in Asia wear white when for grief, when they die, when there's an after death?
I understood it was a celebration
Mm-hmm. Celebration?
versus anguish.
Anguish? Mm-hmm.
That's
No,
all.
you're right on, yes. Yeah. So is that, and so there is a brief story about the Buddhist in India traveled and went too far into the woods and got lost, okay, and was hungry, and said it's time to go home, but didn't know the way back, and the story is, White Rabbit came up to the Buddha and said, I'll help you build a fire, and then after you build a fire, I'll jump into it, and you will have some food, and then your brain will work well to find your way back home. So the Buddhist was so intrigued with this rabbit, says, Rabbit, we're going to take you back to the monastery, and we will adore you forever. When the rabbit died, they wore white. And this white color went up into China. A lot of things started in India, went into China, down into Korea, and then into Japan. So you see this circle of culture, like characters in Japanese characters. Many of them come from China. Korea has their own characters, in that way. So you know what I mean, like the characters for the writing. Yeah. So white is generally not worn in a wedding, except a white shirt. A male may wear a white shirt. It's, Voice, what does voice have to do with culture and grief or death? What does voice have to do with it? Our voice.
They usually get soft when people die.
What's that? Sorry?
Soft.
Soft, yes.
Voice gets soft.
Soft,
People don't
yes.
speak very
Yes.
loud. They usually sort of tone their voice
Yes.
down.
Exactly. It's like when you visit a patient in the hospital. When you visit a patient in the hospital, many times let's say they're lying, and you move up close to them, and you may touch the back of their hand, and your voice is, you can measure the sound you're making that caresses their ears. And they talk to you, say something, that voice. It's that voice, that kind of voice is used after death. In Asia, it's a low voice when people are talking. So it's sort of, people get close together when this happens. So in Ireland, it's really noisy with the wake. People are swearing, matchmaking, teenagers learning about sex. It's completely different. Just like dancing around the body and, it's a whole different story altogether. It's kind of like in Mexico. So that's very different in that way. So So
How did that tradition come about? How did it?
the wake.
Well, yes, the idea that hey, it's like it's a party.
Well, in Celtic, the only time you draw attention to yourself is when you're dead. It's the wisdom of the hen, comes from the wisdom of the hen.
And
A hen, yes. A hen becomes a hen when she lays the fourth egg. The first 3 eggs are really soft, so you don't cook them, you don't eat them, you throw them away. So first, before that, she's called a chicken. Then she becomes a hen. When she lays her egg, she goes away over here, lays her egg, very quietly, and then she comes away over here after laying her egg, and makes a whole lot of noise to distract the predator. So there is a saying, like if you are playing a football game, you don't win until the game is over. And if you slack off, the other team's energy goes up, and you have been disobedient to the wisdom of the hen. You thought, oh, I'm going to win, and then you get a cramp in your leg. So you have to be humble in your victory as you're scoring high scores, because you really haven't won. Or if you are going to study for an exam, and you go out and get drunk the night before, so, this is my last exam, how wonderful. The state exam, I'm going to be a licensed psychologist. Yeah. What do you think is going to happen 9 o'clock in the morning? Yeah. The hippocampus is on storage. So it comes from this whole idea of humbleness, that even if you are a millionaire and you are poor, you don't act like you're rich and you don't act like you're poor, but you act humble. It's going back to that thing about manners. It is why many people in Asia do a lot of business with, there's 2 countries, Israel and Ireland. Israel and Ireland has good business because why? They have this thing of manners, silence. They also know how to use their voice. And they use this in between to fit in the culture. Both countries are very small. Both countries are very vulnerable. Out in the ocean, that's, now I think China wants to take over Ireland. It's their next project. So, well, because Irish people go to Japan, Japanese go to Ireland, business people, for our greatest business was racehorses, horses. And we sold a lot to the Middle East, and when Japan sort of started to be a country in northern Japan, Hokkaido, it was this same with Israel. Some of the best people in business. Yeah. Okay. Is there one more slide? Okay. Did they show you this before? Okay. So family, some of you mentioned, very important. It's probably most important thing, really, like almost all cultures, a family. But in some families, there is, some problems with that, where people feel kind of enmeshed and don't want to get out of it. Confidentiality has a completely different meaning in Asia. Here you sign a form, but if you and I, if you are my doctor, and I tell you something, and you write it down in the chart, it's not confidential anymore. It's like it's only your ears, my ears hear it. But as soon as we do this, the because all our connection is our story together, what we say. But when we take out the consent form, please sign here, it becomes very foreign. So when you have an Asian client, I give you a tip. When you have an Asian client, doesn't matter how long they've been here, please. When they come in for counseling, it's like there's a regression. It's like what happens in grief. They're very vulnerable. Before you hand this and say, sign here, say something like, you know, we have this thing in California, just go by the state. And it's called confidentiality. And it means that this and this and this. So, oh, that's interesting. Huh. Thank you. Thank you. So your verbal sound, the voice I mentioned earlier, your voice connects. You have, do your best not to stare. Eye contact. Sort of, you see the person, but you're not looking at the color of their eyes. If you discover the color of their eyes, you're looking too much. You kind of like you have to earn that to find the color of the eyes.